Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, I got a fun and exciting episode for you guys today because we are doing a follow-up on Viewpoint 2064 that was recently released in full retail version by Hard Games. The most hilarious part about this is I talked about in the video, I would love to know what was going on in the cutscenes because there was some absolutely wild imagery going on with basically a space station with a gigantic eyeball, but because everything was in kanji, I had no idea what was actually going on in the story of Viewpoint. Of course, modders out there saw there was a new N64 game and they knew that it was never in English. They decided to go and translate the entire thing. So now as of today, you can play Viewpoint 2064 with a full English language option. So you're going to be able to understand exactly what's going on in the game. And even though a story in a shmup is a story in an adult film, which is basically to say it needs to be there but nobody cares, it is still very interesting, and I love that the modding and hacking community did this so quickly. And honestly, some of the ships here are giving me some kaiju vibes, almost like a Mothra from the Godzilla franchise. But honestly, getting games like this made available, as I said in the first video, is absolutely outstanding, and it is something I always advocate for, because sharing is caring, and having these games out there in the public means a ton more people can have fun with them, and that is always a better thing. And honestly, the retail version of Viewpoint 2064, I played it again a few times over the weekend after Thanksgiving, and I realized this game absolutely would have been, at least in my opinion, a hit had it come out. Because honestly, shmups on the N64 are not very plentiful whatsoever. We don't really get that many at all, so something like this I think would have been a welcome addition. Now, as I said in the first video, I'm sure the accounting department just decided it wasn't worth making cartridges, because let's be real, this is not the most popular genre out there, so I can totally understand why it got cancelled. But as a spiritual kind of follow-up to the original Neo Geo game, I think this just works in every single direction, and honestly I don't really have any complaints about the presentation, the gameplay, or the overall fun factor. But now again, being able to 100% understand what's going on in the story does give you that little bit of extra motivation. And honestly, this thing getting an English translation as well as a full release in 2025 is about as close as you're going to get to fighting a brand new N64 game. Because having played through this more than once and beaten it, if this isn't just the full retail build, I'd have absolutely no idea what was actually had to be included to get this thing to the finish line. Now, the first time I talked about this game, I played it on Rosalie's Mupin GUI, and the second time here, you're seeing Mr. FPJ footage, because of course the Mr. community made this thing run in about 15 minutes, and if you are struggling to run it, I will leave a little bit of the text in the description below to tell you what setting you need to change on Mr. FPJ in your actual database file, because you need to indicate to the core exactly how this game is set up. It's just one of those things. The N64 database file has entries for basically every known game, but because this game was unknown up until basically a week ago, it's one of those things you do need to change it around ever so slightly. But that's kind of part and parcel how this works every single time a lost game is found. Basically nothing runs it, and then the community steps in and makes sure everything can run it. Obviously run Mr. FPJ here. I'll be testing it on Analog 3D shortly, and it definitely works on Rosalie's Mupin GUI. There's also a nightly update to Ari's that's going to make the game playable as well under that version of emulation, and you can obviously run this on real N64 hardware with a flash cartridge. So now basically no matter how you want to play the game, you're going to be able to do so, and that is the second part of this update video, just the fact now that it works absolutely everywhere, because in the original video I had a ton of comments, people talking about the fact that they couldn't get it to boot up, that they'd get a black screen after the actual developer's logo. Well, now that is completely fixed on Mr. FPJ and Ari's as well, so you'll definitely be able to play this in a lot more places. And now again, with a full English translation, you're going to be able to understand exactly what is going on. And even though this game doesn't have the most amount of text of any N64 game out there, it definitely is still a heavy lift to get all of this text translated over and then hacked back into the game ROM. Don't think it's a free thing, even if it isn't a lot of text, because understanding exactly where that text is held and then hex editing everything to insert that new English translation is not an easy task. So big thanks to the translators here and the modders for getting this thing working. It just means now you're going to understand exactly what you're doing in the game, and that definitely goes a long way to kind of getting a little bit more fun out of it. Let's move to the first soundtrack sample, which is also going to be a translation sample, and I would say the translators did a great job of having conversational English included that is definitely kind of true to the original dialogue, but also of course in more of an English language vibe. But I'll be right back. And there's definitely way more story than you expect to get out of Asia, but honestly, the story is pretty intriguing, especially with that planet that's basically just also some sort of ship and also some sort of eyeball at the same time. I would say in my time spent with Viewpoint 2064, I am definitely loving all of the enemy design as well as the bosses, because when I first did this video, I played through maybe 1.5–2 times so I could get my initial impression and then get it out as a news episode, but now I can also combine a little bit more of playthrough experience into a review, and I will say this game absolutely just nails what it's trying to go for. This overall perspective, even when you go to the 45-degree angle, seems on paper, or at least when you're watching the video, that like it would be hard to actually navigate around the bullets, but I can tell you right now, that is definitely not true, and the nice thing is the developers didn't make your hitbox massive in this game, so you're going to be able to graze some bullets, not exactly like a cave bullet hell shmup, but kind of in the same overall methodology, so you're going to end up in a situation where the game isn't really going to fight you all that much. It definitely gets challenging in later levels, and that challenge is fun, but it's never going to feel unfair. If you do want an easier go of it, definitely go into the options menu, because you can raise your ship's lives all the way up to 9, and that's basically kind of the game's quote-unquote easy mode, because it doesn't really have much in the way of difficulty options, but you do have the ability to give yourself way more lives. And that again is awesome. But the huge takeaway here is in 2025 we got a brand new N64 game in its full retail release that was never actually packaged up and sold to anyone. And I do love the fact you even get branching pathways here as well, so the game is going to have a decent amount of replayability. But our friend here, that horned eyeball, kind of looks like something out of Doom, again is not going to be able to actually tell you what's going on, because there are fewer insects in the mountains, and that has some contextual information as to what's going to be happening in the level next. And this is the type of game no one would have been upset if it hadn't seen an English translation, because again, you understand exactly how to play the game. The translation isn't going to make the game any more understandable from the control or gameplay option. Compared to other games, you really need English to understand the gameplay mechanics and overall goals. This just gives you a lot of flavor text to understand exactly who you're shooting at and why you're shooting at them, and that honestly I think does make the game a richer experience. You now have the motivating factor as to why you're on this mission in the first place, and that definitely does go and help make this feel like a more complete experience. And that honestly is just how amazing that the overall N64 community and modding community is out there. You have people willing to dump a brand new game that's never been seen before in this current version for free for everyone to enjoy, and you have modders willing to go in and make sure it runs on basically every single emulation platform, every FPGA platform called Mr. FPJ, and also to give you that full English language, and that was all done in like under 10 days. And that's one of those things, when these releases come out, everyone wants to button them up and make sure they're ready to go, and now something like Viewpoint 2064 is going to live forever. Your kids or even your grandkids could be able to download this thing in like 75 years, so long as we're all still around and the dinosaurs haven't retaken the planet, or Godzilla didn't come out of Lake Michigan and destroy us all, and they're going to be able to sit down and play an unreleased N64 game in full English. But I soundtrack sample 2 time because the game has great music, and I'll be right back with just a little bit more information on Viewpoint. I asked in the first video if anyone knew where that klaxon sound effect was from, and basically only a few people answered Darius, and I feel like that is exactly the same sound effect, maybe just pitched up a bit. And I love this boss here, kind of looks like a mix between a dragonfly and a wasp in all of the most fun ways, because this thing can't actually sting you in real life. And a little fact about video game esoterica, I hate anything that isn't a honeybee, because I swear every single summer a bee randomly lands on me, stings me, and I absolutely just swell up like a birthday balloon. It sucks, and I definitely do not like bees. But it's one of those things, I do love when people release games like this. I love when translators and modders go in and make sure they're playable on everything. It just makes me happy to know that games like this will continue to live a full life for the longest time. That's why I'm always willing to dump any single arcade release I can find that isn't out there and playable by everyone. And I'm so glad people like Tony from Heart from Games love to do the same thing. So if you want to play this one today, it's in full English, it works on basically every platform, and I can't recommend you check it out enough. And if you have played it already, leave me your thoughts down below, because I would be curious. But we're done, I'm going to keep fighting this evil bee, and I'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye-bye.